In the year 2242, silence was the ultimate luxury, and true sleep was its closest competitor. For the right price, you could have any dream you desired, custom-built from the ground up by artisans of the subconscious. Kaelen was one of these master builders. A Somnus Architect. He didn't work with brick and mortar, but with memory and desire, weaving the raw data of a client's psyche into worlds of perfect, temporary bliss. And, scene. Render complete. Transferring to client. On his main holographic screen, a simple, looping memory of a hike through a sun-dappled Pennsylvanian would played out. The client, a low-level executive at a shipping conglomerate, wanted to relive his grandfather's favorite walk one last time before the memory data degraded completely. It was simple, clean work. The kind of work Kaelen did now. He sent the completed dream file to the client, the payment confirmation chiming a moment later. The fee was respectable. It was enough to cover the exorbitant rent on his minimalist studio in the city's sterile upper stratum and the maintenance contracts on his hardware. It was safe. And it was profoundly, soul-crushingly empty. His genius was haunted by the ghost of his last masterpiece, a spiraling, kaleidoscopic fantasy for a young musician named Lyra. She had wanted a world made of sound, a synesthetic wonderland. Kaelen, in his arrogance, had pushed the neural weave too hard, overclocked the sensory inputs past the safety parameters. He'd given her a symphony that had shattered her mind, leaving the brilliant young woman in a state of permanent cognitive dissonance, a hollow shell of discordant notes. The public inquiry, heavily influenced by Somnus Architect's PR department, called it a subconscious incompatibility. Kaelen knew it was his fault. So now, his days were filled with gentle forests and quiet beaches. Memorials, not fantasies. Penance, paid in pixels. A sleek, black data packet materialized as a holographic projection in his studio. It was triple encrypted, bypassing his usual client queue and public-facing portal. This was a direct, hardline connection. The sender was anonymous, but the encrypted payment offer attached was anything but. It was a figure with enough zeros to scrub the past clean and build a new future from the ashes. Kaelen's professional curiosity, an old, dangerous instinct he thought long dead, warred with the cold knot of fear in his stomach. With a grimace, he accepted the connection. The air in his studio shimmered, the molecules seeming to align themselves with practiced precision. The hologram that formed was of a man who didn't just wear power, he emitted it like a field. He was sharp, tailored in a suit of smart fabric that subtly shifted its weave with his movements. His face was a mask of cold, polite grief that didn't quite reach his piercing, analytical eyes. Kaelen felt a jolt, as if a low-voltage current had passed through the floor. Alistair Finch was the CEO of Somnus Architect, the very corporation that had invented and now monopolized the global dreamweaving industry. He wasn't just a captain of industry, he was the king of the world Kaelen inhabited. To receive a direct call from Finch was like a parish priest getting a private summons from the Pope. Mr. Finch. An honor. I wasn't aware I was on your personal radar. Finch, the best artists always are, Mr. Kaelen. Even when they choose to paint smaller canvases. I have followed your work since your time at the Academy. Your thesis on rendering nostalgic sensory data was formative for the industry. Which is why I have come to you. Kaelen, I mostly handle memorial loops now. Simple, static work. Yes, I am aware of your new focus. Since the Lyra incident. A regrettable affair. But your caution is precisely what this project requires. I need a master craftsman, not a reckless showman. This is a personal matter. Finch gestured, and a second hologram materialized between them, a data crystal, spinning slowly, pulsing with a soft, golden light like a captured star of memory. Finch, this crystal contains every memory fragment, every sensory input, every piece of neurological data we have of her. It is the most complete posthumous data map in existence. I want you to build one single dream. Her last perfect day. A walk on the shores of Seychelles, 7, the day before she passed. I want it flawless. She will be the sole occupant. A ghost in an empty paradise. Kaelen, a static memorial loop. As I said. No. Not just a loop. Your associates create facsimiles. They paint by numbers. Your reputation, your original reputation, suggests you can resurrect feelings. I want to feel the exact warmth of the twin suns she felt that day. I want to hear the precise whisper of the waves that she heard. I want to smell the salt on the air and the scent of the Signian orchids that grew on the cliffs. I want her final, happy memory to be preserved, perfect and eternal. A testament. Spare no expense. It was the most challenging, most lucrative job Kaelen had ever been offered. A chance to work with a pure, unfiltered data set of a quality he could only imagine. It was a chance to prove, if only to himself, that the artist within him hadn't died with Lyra's mind. It was a job he couldn't possibly refuse. Yet as he reached out and his holographic hand closed over the holographic crystal, the feeling was a strange mix of exhilaration and dread. He was touching a beautifully polished tombstone, and the man in front of him was not a grieving husband, but a demanding curator, commissioning the most beautiful display case imaginable. Granted. You will report only to me. Your work begins now. I will expect daily progress reports. Kaelen, I will need complete autonomy. No corporate oversight from Somnus Tech. My studio, my hardware, my code. The hologram of Alistair Finch dissolved, leaving the golden data crystal hovering in the air. With a final chime, the file transferred to Kaelen's secure server. He was alone again in the quiet of his studio, the weight of the commission settling upon him. In the heart of his console, the data bloomed. It wasn't a file, it was a galaxy of memories, a lifetime compressed into shimmering lines of code. He spent the first full cycle just building a framework, a digital canvas vast enough to hold the staggering fidelity of the data. Then, he began his work, isolating the Seychelles' 7 memory. He was an artist again, lost in his craft. He rendered the fine, white sand, programming the quantum signature of each individual grain to reflect the light of the twin suns in a precise, unique way. He charted the sun's paths, calculating the subtle color shift of the light as it passed through the alien atmosphere. He stitched together the feeling of a gentle breeze, coating the Brownian motion of the air particles to brush against the skin with lifelike randomness. He spent 10 hours on the water alone, programming the physics of the waves, the churn of the foam, the translucence of the crests. It was the most intricate work he had ever done. Finally, he began to construct Alara herself. From the data, her avatar formed. He watched her laugh, a sound like wind chimes, as she chased a shorebird down the digital beach. He saw her close her eyes, a look of pure contentment on her face as she felt the sun on her skin. It was perfect. But as he began to integrate her core consciousness file, the deep, foundational code of her personality and subconscious, a flicker of red appeared on his diagnostic screen. Anomaly 1. A corrupted data fragment, a single stray note in a perfect symphony. He wrote a simple patch, quarantining the fragment and smoothing it over. But then another appeared. And another. He found a single pixel of the turquoise sky that would flash dead black for a nanosecond. He found a sound file of a shorebird that would, if isolated and amplified, end in a clipped, unnatural static instead of fading naturally. He found a sensory file for the gentle breeze that contained a single, rogue temperature variable, a drop of 5 degrees, lasting for less than a millisecond. Too fast to feel, but it was there. A shiver in the code. They were echoes. Flaws in the perfect memory. He submitted his preliminary progress report to Finch, a polished video of the pristine beach and the smiling, laughing Alara. As a matter of professional transparency, he attached a log of the anomalies he'd patched. The reply was almost instantaneous, a simple text-to-speech message. The progress is exceptional, Mr. Kaelen. The anomalies are trivial. Minor imperfections are what make memories real. They prove the work is authentic. Ignore them. Focus on the beauty, not the blemishes. The response was too quick, too dismissive. It felt less like a reassurance and more like an order. It was the answer of a man who knew the flaws were there and didn't want them examined. That night, Kaelen couldn't sleep. The memory of Lyra's shattered mind, of alarms blaring as he lost control of a dream, surfaced in his own thoughts. He had ignored anomalies then, too. Pushed past them in the name of his art. He went back to the console. Against his better judgment, and Finch's direct instruction, he isolated the most complex anomaly, the corrupted sound file of the waves. He ran a deep-level restoration algorithm, peeling back layers of noise, not to fix it, but to understand what had broken it. The sound of the serene waves warped, twisting into a low, distorted whisper. A single word, buried deep in the static, spoken in Alara's own voice. A chill traced its way down Kaelen's spine. This was no blemish. This was no data degradation. This was a message, deliberately hidden. He had been commissioned to build a beautiful cage for a ghost, but it seemed the ghost was rattling the bars. The word sanctuary, spoken in a dead woman's voice, echoed in the sterile silence of Kaelen's studio. It was a crack in the perfect veneer of his commission, and he knew, with the chilling certainty of a man who had seen systems collapse before, that cracks never heal themselves. They only spread. His first instinct, the one conditioned by years of corporate protocol and the searing memory of his past failure, was to obey. Delete the restored file, patch the anomaly, and focus on the beauty, not the blemishes, just as Alistair Finch had ordered. But he couldn't. The architect in him was offended by the flaw, and the dormant man of conscience within him was roused by the mystery. He spent the next cycle running searches, bouncing queries through anonymizing relays, trying to find any mention of Project Sanctuary within the public-facing archives of Somnus Tech. He found nothing. It was a ghost. Every official search came back with a query not found or redirected to a bland corporate mission statement. The project, whatever it was, had been digitally scrubbed from history. This wasn't just classified, it was a void, an intentionally created black hole in the data stream. Frustrated, he changed tactics. He searched for personnel files, looking for any collaborators who worked with Alara Vance in the years before her death. He found dozens of names, but one stood out, flagged with a contract terminated, ethics violation marker. Anya Sharma. Kaelen remembered her. A brilliant, fiercely intelligent data ethicist who saw the dark potential in dream weaving long before anyone else. He had been a rising star then, and when she was unceremoniously fired for her persistent, probing questions, he had quietly cut ties to protect his career. The shame of it, a dull and familiar ache, surfaced once more. She was the one person who might have an answer. She was the one person he had no right to ask. He hesitated for a long hour, the name on his screen a testament to his past cowardice. Finally, knowing it was his only path forward, he opened a secure, triple-encrypted channel. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. For a full 10 seconds, the only sound was the faint hiss of the encrypted channel. When Anya spoke again, all traces of cynicism were gone, replaced by a cold, deadly seriousness. Anya, get out. Right now. Don't email, don't send a formal resignation. Erase the file, scrub your system, and walk out of that studio with nothing but the clothes on your back. Whatever he's paying you, it's not enough to buy back the piece of your soul he's going to carve out just for being in the room. Kaelen, he wants a memorial for his wife. Alara Vance. I'm building a dream for her, and I think something is terribly wrong. I keep finding corrupted fragments in the memory data. I isolated one. It's a message. A word. Sanctuary. He could hear a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Anya, oh, you are in so much deeper than I thought. Kaelen, Sanctuary wasn't a project. It was a mutiny. It was Alara's passion. She was a purist, a true believer in the therapeutic potential of the tech, and she saw what Finch was turning it into, a decadent, addictive escape for the rich, built on a system with no ethical oversight. Sanctuary was her answer. An ethical fail-safe. A conscience for the whole network, with the power to initiate a controlled shutdown of any dream that became psychologically dangerous or unstable. It was a kill switch. Kaelen, to prevent what happened to Lyra. Exactly. To prevent what happened to Lyra. Ilara fought him for 2 years to get it implemented. Finch saw it as a threat to his entire business model. He wanted flawless, addictive paradises, not dreams that could be unplugged by a safety protocol. He buried the project. And, it seems, her with it. Her death in that vehicle accident. It was a week after he officially dismantled Sanctuary and seized all her research. Kaelen, he's not building a memorial. He's looking for something. Of course he is. Ilara was brilliant. She must have known he would come for her work. She must have hidden the final activation code for Sanctuary somewhere he would never think to look. Not in a corporate server, but in the one place he couldn't easily access, her own subconscious. Her memories. He's using you, the great architect, to sweep the scene of the crime and find the murder weapon for him. He's making you desecrate her grave. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Before Kaelen could respond, a soft chime alerted him to an incoming call. It was Alistair Finch. Kaelen smoothed the look of horror from his face, composing himself into a mask of calm professionalism. He accepted the call. Finch's perfectly rendered hologram appeared, a polite smile on his lips. Finch, Mr. Kaelen. I trust the project is proceeding smoothly. Kaelen, it is, Mr. Finch. I'm in the final rendering stages of the environment now. The fidelity is remarkable. The data crystal you provided is the purest source material I've ever worked with. It was a question, but it felt like a threat. A test to see if the dog was still obeying its master. Kaelen, none at all. The minor corruptions were trivial, as you said. They've all been patched and smoothed over. It will be the perfect paradise you asked for. Finch, I'm pleased to hear it. Do not disappoint me, Mr. Kaelen. The memory of my wife is precious to me. The call ended. Kaelen let out a breath. He didn't realize he'd been whole, he knows. Or he suspects. That was a warning shot. You need to get out. Kaelen, no. Not yet. If what you say is true, then Ilara left a trail. She's trying to talk, and I'm the only one who can hear her. I have to go back into the dream. But not as an architect. As an explorer. Anya, that's suicide. He'll have security protocols, backdoors. Kaelen, then I'll have to be smarter than them. I'm going in, ding. Disconnecting from Anya, Kaelen prepped his system for a full immersion dive. He wasn't just observing the code from his console anymore. He was going inside. He stood on the perfect sand. The world was overwhelmingly beautiful, a testament to his own skill. The twin suns warmed his face, and the air tasted of salt. In the distance, the avatar of Ilara was walking along the shoreline, exactly as her memory dictated, a perfect puppet in a perfect play. But Kaelen ignored her. He engaged his architect's dev mode, a set of diagnostic tools invisible to any user. The beautiful world was instantly overlaid with a faint grid of green wireframes. He could see the code now, the skeleton beneath the skin. He followed the trail of the patched anomalies, moving like a ghost through his own creation. He found the spot where the sky had flickered black. In the code, it was a dead hyperlink, pointing to a non-existent file. He found the spot where the breeze had turned cold. It was a rogue line of code, trying to trigger a different weather simulation. These weren't just glitches, they were signposts, deliberately broken to attract the attention of a repairman. A trail of breadcrumbs. The trail led him away from the main beach, towards a large waterfall cascading from a cliff into a turquoise lagoon. This area was part of the memory, but it was peripheral, less detailed. He walked towards the roaring water, and as he got closer, the sound began to subtly change. Alistair, if you are seeing this, it means you have broken into the last safe piece of me. You have desecrated my memory to find my work. But you will never get the key. You can't hear the music. I've hidden it where you'll never think to look. The sanctuary code is bound to the carrier wave of. A red warning flashed across the terminal screen, unauthorized data accessed. Initiating automated scrub protocol. File deletion in 30 seconds. A silent security program, a janitor bot, had detected his intrusion. It wasn't Finch attacking him directly, it was the system itself, trying to clean up the mess he had uncovered. The video file of Alara began to rapidly corrupt, dissolving into pixels. He had to save it. With only seconds to spare, Kaelen initiated a frantic, direct data transfer, ripping the file from the Dream terminal and pulling it into his own architect's memory buffer. The countdown hit 0. The laboratory, the terminal, the last echo of Alara's defiance, it all dissolved into a cascade of pristine, harmless code that resolved itself back into the solid rock wall of a simple, empty cave. The janitor program was done. The evidence was gone. Kaelen stood in the darkness of the cave, his heart hammering. He had the proof. But he also knew, with icy certainty, that he was no longer just a curious observer. He was an active threat. And the system, and the man who controlled it, now knew he was there. The walls were closing in.